Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Hammer. So today is a special episode. I have a special guest on for you, and I'll let you know what we are doing today. So today I have Dan from Malign Musings. You may have seen his channel. It's very good on meta-analysis and lots of sort of data crunchiness. Some say you may or may not be the smartest man in Warhammer, Dan. Is that true or false?
I'm very British, so I don't like special guests. I'm just, I play everything down. I keep it cool.
Nice, nice. Very modest. I like it. Well, the reason we've got you on today is we wanted to talk about the different scoring systems in Warhammer. So basically, this is how tournament winners are really determined and how the breakdown of positions and rankings in a tournament are made. There are a couple of popular systems in play at the moment. So we'll discuss the pros and cons of that. But also, Dan has been cooking something in the background and has come up with a new system, which I think is worth discussing. And it might be better than what we have available. It might not. Hopefully, you guys will decide. So, without further ado, Dan, what you're a stats man? Am I right? Like stats is your thing. Is that a professional thing or is that a personal thing? Are you just a big fan of data?
I'm very comfortable with lots of data, so it's kind of professional and kind of personal. But I guess I kind of do. I guess people do the jobs they do because they've got like an interest in like using the skills that you use to do that job, as it were. So like professionally, I run portfolios for clients, so I do a lot of analysis of like markets and so on and so forth to determine, essentially economically where you should be putting money, like what kind of region of what kind of assets, what region, etc., etc. So yeah, I kind of analyze data for a living. But then I'm also really interested in like finding patterns within data. As you can probably guess, I'm a member of Mensa, which means I absolutely love, pattern analysis and, that kind of thing. So um, yeah, it's kind of a personal interest, but I feel like I'm good at it to an extent. I don't know.
I
I
would say
mean,
so. Yeah, I'd say definitely. I mean, as far as reputation goes, you're one of the people that I think a lot of people look for accurate analysis of, say, win rates or how factions are performing and things like that. But I mean, I don't know if this is the same for everybody else, but personally, I sometimes find some of your analysis beyond my comprehension. So I look at it and I go, yes, he makes sense. But what does that mean? Like
I don't know
what
why though.
why? Yeah. Like
Yeah,
I agree with the
the
end
conclusion
analysis. The
feels
conclusion is the
intuitive.
same.
However,
Yeah.
yeah,
However, I
yeah.
struggle to follow the working sometimes, but that's fine. That's not a problem. Like I like things that
It's
are
really funny you say that because I was talking to Colin Goody of
Gomo, yeah, from Old World Rankings.
that's it, Old World Rank. Well, I was trying to remember his channel actually, but yeah, Old World Rankings.
Yeah.
Um, And yeah, I mean, because we were talking about like what kind of analysis you could do, because he's added that chart to the website, the one that I
Yeah.
suggested with the
The
variability, which
box,
I think
yeah,
is
the
yeah,
box
which I
plots,
think
yeah.
is super helpful because it tells people basically what's the normal range of results for their faction. So like if you're hitting that range, you're doing okay, right?
Yeah.
If you're above, you're doing something special, and if you're below, maybe you're getting unlucky, maybe you need to tweak your list. That's kind of that's kind of the point of that.
Yeah.
But we were talking about you could, because there's an awful lot of longitudinal data, which basically means the data that's collected over time. So you get two types of data. You get longitudinal and you get cross-sectional. So cross-sectional means take a snapshot and have a look at the cross-section of the data, whereas longitudinal is looking for trends over time. So there's an awful lot of longitudinal data, which we could do, a lot of complex analysis on. But really, it wouldn't add anything, I
Mm.
don't think, because like what point is there to an academically robust analysis of this type of data? Like you said, people won't follow the method. They won't
Yeah.
understand what's going on. So, although you might be able to present some conclusions that seem okay, nobody nobody bar probably me and a couple of other blokes will actually understand how I got there. So
Yeah.
what really, it's not really helping you to tell a story and like create engaging content that people can engage with, because that's kind of the point, isn't it? It's to
Yeah.
create something that people find interesting and then therefore engage with. So, I think getting too complicated. I try not to get too complicated, although sometimes you do need a bit of complexity to get to a reasoned conclusion. There's that saying, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? And what that actually means is that there are lies, just outright lies.
Yeah.
There are damned lies, which are people inappropriately using statistics to support an argument that isn't true. I can reel off a load of world leaders at this stage. And then there's statistics, which is a genuine, like, robust analysis of the data to try and identify patterns within it.
Yeah.
You know, and come to the right conclusions, i.e. the conclusions that the data lead you to, rather than using the data to sort of, a lot of people, especially politicians, decide on a conclusion and then go and find the data that supports their conclusion.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the wrong way to do it. But that's politics.
If anything, we need more statisticians as politicians, but that unlikely to get that bit.
That's not going to happen.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Logical people don't go into politics.
Exactly.
It's a horrible job.
Yeah, nobody actually. None of the people who want that should deserve it.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, that's fair. But I think you're right, though. I think, and that point of people lie with statistics is probably the argument that I see online most often, because people are like, no, this is the best faction, and here's a random snapshot that I found on the internet because, this faction has won more games than anything else. And then you start to sort of take that apart and you go, well, that might be... Is it really? Was that just like... for example, Lizardmen have won GTs, right? Maybe like one. But it doesn't mean that Lizardmen are an amazing faction. It just means that person performed above the average. Yeah. They obviously got the matchups that they needed to get, and then they did win.
There's a chap called Robbie, what was his name? Robbie Seuss. I can't remember his surname. I think it's Susan or something like that. Anyway, he was taking Lizardmen like early doors and doing really well. And I think he's moved to other factions now. But, Lizardmen had a period where their stats made them look, like you said, really good. But that was basically Robbie.
Exactly. Yeah, well, that's it. It's performing above the curve. And that's what I like about your analysis, is looking at it, you always had like a good breakdown of like, here is what you would expect. If you take X faction, you would win so many games, and if you won more than that, you're doing better than the average. If you're won less than that, you really need to improve your game. And I found that
you just got unlucky. Like,
you got unlucky. I've
taken solid armies to tournaments before. Like I remember when Lumineth came out, I took a really solid army to a tournament and managed. I think I won like 3 out of 5 games, because the other 2 games I just on the day. I mean, one of them I just totally cocked up, and one of them my dice were just horrible. And I don't know how. I think he charged my tech list with like 3 units of Boingrot Bounders and rolled maximum impact hits, and I rolled no ward saves. It's like I can't account for that. Like, you've just taken out half my army with like a few lucky rolls.
And that does happen. And in a way, that's why this Warhammer in general is fun, because no matter what the statistical average says, you can always get higher or lower dice. You can get all sorts of crazy, unlikely things happen, and in a way, you remember those games more. So that's
also unlikely things happen more often than they should. Yeah. Weirdly, like stupid dice rolls that should like never be. Like I remember a tournament I went to like last year, and I charged a unit of Chosen into some dwarves, and I had something like 20 odd rolls of 4+, all failed. So 1 times 2 to the power 24 is an astronomically huge number. Like, it's just that shouldn't happen ever. Like, there's not enough people to roll enough dice to get to that outcome, but it happens, and it does have those sorts of rolls happen quite frequently, which is why stuff like re-rolls are so much more important than people think, because those spiky rolls happen very, very frequently. So it can eliminate a negative spike, or it can artificially create a positive spike. So re-rolls are massive, but precisely for that reason. It's very difficult to mathematically quantify, though, how much extra value those re-rolls have. But my intuition is that they're much, much more valuable than I think people think. They're much more valuable than just basic statistics, I think.
Is that what we're saying then? So far, the first take from this is re-rolls are OP. So hatred, leadership tests, any of those sort of things that you can re-roll are the tech to have.
I mean, I wouldn't say OP, but like I said, in a tournament setting, if you've got 5 games, you're going to have some crazy dice rolls
Yeah, of course.
over those 15 hours of play, aren't you?
Yeah.
So re-rolls allow you to essentially try and cancel out negatives and reach for a kind of a positive spike, as it were. So they provide you the utility to really massacre your opposition, but they're not reliable though. That's the
Yeah.
thing. But and
I mean,
again, it's really difficult to measure statistically.
yeah. I guess that's what you're trying to do with these is you're trying to average out your dice rolls whenever
Yeah,
you have things like rerolls. But we do digress. We're here to
yes,
talk about different ranking systems or different ways that you could rank a tournament. So I
mm,
guess some of it is maybe, and we'll discuss that within the different system, I think, is really what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to determine
mm,
when you're doing um a scoring system. So like what matters to you, who do you think
mm,
should be the winner, and how should other placings be sort of in that. And I
mm,
think that might be might be some cultural differences in there, because I think um there is a disparity between, in my opinion, the European way of looking at gaming systems and the North American way of looking at it, and I'll dive into that a bit more. But I think the one system that most people are familiar with at the moment, seems to be very popular, is the win loss draw system. So essentially, that means that the result of any of your games is win loss draw, and then
mm.
you get paired usually in subsequent rounds based on your bracket. If you're in the winning bracket, if you've
Yeah,
won all your games, if you're losing, if you're drawing, things like that. And most people, I think, are familiar with like a 1 day event which has 3 games, and then a 2 day event which most often has 5 games.
mm,
And I think so. Essentially, that system boils down to the winner usually, especially in a 5 game event, is
mm.
the person who's won all their games. But
Yes.
that person can win.
Or can be. I mean, what one thing I like about them widening the draw bracket is that we'll see more draws, and therefore you should see more closed tournaments.
Mm,
Like I don't really, I compete in strongman as well, and like when you go to those sorts of competitions, you really don't want somebody sort of just absolutely curb stomping your category, because
yeah,
it's almost like they're too good for it. They definitely shouldn't be there. Do you know what I mean? So there's something that that person probably shouldn't have turned up and competed at that level. And you kind of feel the same with Warhammer. If somebody's just running away with it, then it's not fun as a tournament.
yeah,
Well, it is fun as a tournament because you get to play loads of games against cool people, but like it's like the result is like it's a bit boring. There's not really a lot of tension around that final result, as it were. So
yeah,
I mean, I'd like to see more draws. I just think it makes like that kind of progression more exciting, and also it piles more pressure on the people at the top, so it makes it even harder to, like, if you've won 3 and then drawn your fourth, then you've really got to try hard in the last game just to make sure you get that maximum points. But
yeah.
sorry, I'm butted in.
No, no, no. You're totally right. And I think related to Warhammer, your scenario there is essentially, if you took an army which might be considered OP, or is actually sorry, OP, overpowered,
Mm,
or might actually be above the curve, or very new and powerful,
mm.
e.g. Cathay.
Cathay.
Yeah, so I think we'll start to see that, especially in the beginning, while people don't really know how to face it, how to play against it.
Mm,
We've already seen a few results over the weekend where Cathay did a 1-2 on a 5 day event. So that was, I mean, props to those players. I know they're good players, but good players with good armies against people who don't know how to play against those armies will tend
well,
to
it's just a
result in more
nightmare for
wins.
everybody else, isn't
Yeah,
it? That's the
exactly,
problem. Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
and I mean, in that sense, it's very similar to what you said. There is a skills or knowledge gap there between people who know how to play that army and people who know how to play against it. I think the only
Mm.
game, the two Cathay armies in that last weekend, I think the only game one of them lost was to the other Cathay player. So
Well,
basically,
I haven't actually checked any results yet, because I normally do my like video on a Wednesday. But did they were they like running the cannon list? Do you know? Do you
I
remember the
know
list?
the
Or
winning list had 3 cannons and
yeah, yeah,
at
yeah.
least one balloon and a sentinel. So it wasn't the balloon
Okay.
party, at least not the winning list. But yeah, three
Yeah, yeah.
cannons seems to be
Seems to be the thing.
popular. Yeah, definitely.
Well, getting 6 great cannon shots in the first turn is just, you know,
Yeah,
horrendous.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. But
you know,
that's
it's the ogre loader that's broken about Cathay and Miao Ying. I think the Celestial Dragon Guard and the ogre loader, they need nerfing. But other than that, I think it's fine.
there
You
is,
know.
yeah, there is definitely things that need to be looked at in that army. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So
army comp.
that's
That's
another chat
beside
for
the
another
point. That's
day.
it. But yeah, win loss draw. That's so what I and you're right. It doesn't always the person who wins. It doesn't always the one who's won all their games. I've seen plenty of events where the winner is 1-4 drawn one or even well. In fact, um, I've won an event, an online event where I won 3 games and I drew 2. So
Mm,
it can get pretty crazy. You also can have games or events if they're big enough where you have 5 somebody who's more than one person that's won 5 games, and
mm,
then it goes down to tiebreakers. And in a way, that's sort of I think the bit that I am not a massive fan of is the
mm,
tiebreakers bit um, because the winning the sort of the brackets are not as granular.
mm,
You basically always need to have a tiebreaker because there's a
mm,
good chance there'll be other people in the same scoring as you. And
mm.
tiebreakers most often are things like battle points, which people are
Yep.
familiar with sort of like the 20-0 system. Or other times it can be something weird like victory points gained or victory
Mm.
point differential, which is essentially battle points in a way.
Or
Um,
strength of schedule I've
Sort of
seen as
strength of
well, which is
schedule, yeah,
yeah.
and there's arguments for both. Um, but the whole pattern of win loss draw, I think it seems to stem from basically the our transatlantic friends. They tend to be very big fans of.
Mm,
They can't seem to whenever I try and counter argument win loss draw as a system, they can't seem to get past the fact that the person who wins need to have won all their games. And then when I point out that well sometimes the person who wins hasn't won all their games, they just haven't lost all their games, and sometimes maybe they will have lost 1 game. So I don't know. It to me, I don't know. I'm not a massive fan of the win loss draw system because I feel
mm,
like as soon as you lose a game, you're out of the running, or it feels like you're out of the
mm.
running. Even if you only lost
Yeah, and
very
it
very
just does.
small.
You're right, and it just doesn't reward people because as soon like you're absolutely right. In fact, I know this from experience because I've been to tournaments before where I've got a really strong list. I've lost like game 3 or 4 or something, and then I might as well go home.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, and I think
I'm not, I'm
that
just going to end up like 7th or 8th out of, 40 or whatever. So, like, what
yeah,
really? I mean,
yeah,
yeah, having another game, but like when you're on like 4 or 5 games, it's pretty tiring to anybody who doesn't
yes,
go to tournaments. Like, it is pretty knackering.
yeah,
You get to like game 5 and you're like, oh, I want to go,
yeah.
and if you're doing a 6 gamer, oh dear, like it's very, and
It's a
especially
slog.
if you're a portly chap like myself, your back gets really sore. Like, I'm not joking. Like, it gets quite painful. So, like, finishing a tournament is actually quite tricky. So, just losing that 4th game is really demoralising. So, it's like you might as well have not bothered turning up for the second day, really.
And I do wonder if that is the reason that in the States there are more dropouts in these sort of events as the tournament goes on. I think
You're
part
right. Actually, there are. I've never. But now you say that, yeah,
yeah, but
that's true.
I
Yeah,
have spoken to and I say Americans because obviously they're the largest gaming population on that side, but I will
yeah.
include the Canadians in that as well and any of our sort of Latin American friends there too. But that other side of the pond. They tend to have, I think, most of their events at gaming conventions, so like Gen
Mm,
Con
mm,
and Adepticon and all of these sort of events. They'll have the convention and then they'll have a tournament within that convention. So like when you feel like you've lost your game 3 or game 4 or whatever, and you go, well, I can either play out the last 1 or 2 rounds and you know come in the top 10 or something,
mm,
or I can maybe just quit, go play maybe another tournament, or maybe just go and have a look around the convention, enjoy myself. Like I can see
mm,
there being an appeal to that. Or alternatively, even if it's just like a solo event, it doesn't have anything else. You can just go home early. I'm sure your
mm,
family would appreciate having you back home a few hours early. Get
yeah.
a few more brownie points back in the bank. And I think that's maybe why there is a higher dropout rate in win-loss draw tournaments because once you've lost, you're sort of out of the running, and I wonder if that affects some people's decisions as to whether to continue.
I mean, probably. I mean, obviously we don't know because we've
No.
not done a survey or anything. But like, I mean, that seems intuitive. I think it's interesting because you mentioned the word granularity, and really, the win draw loss thing is the most simple that you can possibly get. There's almost no granularity at all
Not
there,
really.
really. Whereas, like, if you wanted like absolute granularity, you just go for victory points or kill points or whatever, the battle point. What are they called? I can't remember this.
I guess
Anyway,
victory points. Yeah. Victory
victory points.
points
Yeah, yeah.
would be
Everybody
yeah.
knows what I mean by that.
Yeah.
So you could go for that, which, but the sort of distorting effect of doing that is occasionally you get some players who get absolutely ridiculous results in one game,
Yeah.
and then they basically would win a tournament off a game. Like, yeah, they still have to do well in the other games, but essentially, if you end up just getting the right opponent,
Yeah.
this is another thing about tournaments. Like, if you get an opponent where that your army is suited to beat, and you're better than them, and you're slightly more lucky, you just absolutely curb stomp them and
Yeah.
end up with like 2,500. Like, you can get on to nearly 3,000 victory points, and they end up with almost nothing.
Yeah.
And you pretty much, so if you're going super granular, you'd probably win the tournament based on that one result. So that you need something in the middle, I think, that strips out the effect of like those extreme results,
Yeah.
but does reward players for doing particularly well in a game. And also, you kind of want a system that rewards players for doing well defensively as well. So,
Yeah.
like, they don't just give up because they're losing and let their opponent table them. They've still got something to play for in the game,
Yeah.
and that's, you want a system really that incentivizes people to keep going and to keep fighting, really.
Yeah. I agree, and I think that's, for me, is probably the the biggest weakness of the win loss draw system is the lack of incentives to continue.
Mm,
Where if you've had really bad luck, or you've come up against the one army that counters your army in the whole entire event, and you have a crap game, or even if like you lose, but you lose by the tiniest amount of victory points,
mm,
but enough to drop you into the losing bracket, you suddenly feel like, well, why am I bothering continuing? Like,
mm.
there's no sort of incentive there. And I think other systems have a better incentive for you to continue and maybe do better in subsequent rounds that the win
Yeah,
loss draw
yeah, yeah.
system perhaps doesn't. Um, so I think win loss draw has some strengths. It's simple, it's straightforward. You know, it's hard to argue that the person who wins all their games should be the overall winner,
Mm.
which you don't always get with other scoring systems. But it does have its weaknesses as well, like it's lack of incentives to sort of continue, and um, relying on tiebreakers as a way to differentiate between people because of the lack of granularity that we have in there.
Mm.
But it is the one system that I think most people are familiar with. I think a lot of people play, and it's certainly something that we'll probably see going forward. But it's not the only
But
gaming scoring
I,
system.
I think though that playing like devil's advocate, people who like that system would say, well, actually, if you go for the 20-0 system,
Mm,
then you could, and you do, end up with players winning tournaments who haven't won all their games,
yeah,
whereas they finish ahead of people who have actually won all their games.
yeah,
So that doesn't seem fair that somebody who's like won, let's say, mathematically you could do it with 1-3 and drawn 2, we're finishing above people who've won all 5 games. That doesn't seem fair, and there is a element of truth to that. I mean, I kind of,
mm.
I sort of agree, but then you know get, because then essentially, because I mean, just to explain the 20-0 system, because I don't think we have yet.
This is the next
um
bit. Yeah, go for it.
yeah, just to explain the 20-0 system, I mean, basically, if you end up with a draw, both players get 10 points. And then usually it's like every 200-point differential above a draw, you end up getting an extra point. So, say for instance, if the TO decided the draw margin was 100 points, right? So, if your victory point differential is less than 100 points, you get a draw, 10 points each. If it's, let's say, a 200-point differential, well, you're 100 points outside of the draw. So, you're in that first bracket of winning, So you'd end up with 11 points and your opponent would end up with 9 points.
Yeah.
And so essentially, if you table your opponent, you get your 2,100 victory point differential, you end up with 20 points and your opponent ends up with nil. So what that does is that kind of incentivizes, for people who want to win tournaments, it incentivizes extreme results.
Yeah.
So it incentivizes players to absolutely curb stomp their opponent as much as possible and to really grind them down into the dirt. And that can result in some negative play experiences.
Yeah,
I've been
definitely.
at the receiving end of a couple of those. It's not pleasant,
Yeah,
but it happens.
it does.
I've had one of those in the old world. Actually, I played somebody who'd got like a horrible vampire counts list with like 6 whales and
Yeah.
reserve move everywhere and blah 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 blah. And I took my chaos army and I had nothing that could deal with it, and it was
Yeah.
just like just got
Painful.
screamed off the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, good opponent, great list, horrible game.
Yeah, and that does happen, and yeah, and I think probably you're right. The 20-0 system is probably the one that sees the most type of curb stomping, like you said, because it does feel like the incentive there is to smash your opponent as much as possible, because it'll, that could make all the difference in the standings of things later on. And there is a skill to doing it nicely.
Yes.
And there's a skill to losing nicely too, and I think that
Yeah.
sort of goes in being a good sportsman in general. So it's
Yeah.
definitely
It's funny that very rarely the tournament winner actually gets the best sportsman award.
yeah, that's true.
That almost never happens, and there's probably a reason for
Well,
that.
funny you should say that, but I have won a tournament this year and got the best sports in the same
Well
same
done,
event.
Pash. Yeah,
But that was
all hail King Pash.
that was a 1-day event, and everybody else there was a dick. So I think that was just by default. They were like, he's the best of the worst.
No, he's not an absolute bell end, so he can.
But no, I do agree with that. It is hard to, as a competitive player, to win big and still leave your opponent with a smile on their face. Like, some people don't take that very well, and it's rare that it sort of pans out in that way. And yeah, the 20-0 system does probably incentivize that even more than, say, the win-loss-draw system. That's probably and when we say the 20-0 system, the one suggested in the Games Workshop match play guide is the 6-0 system is essentially the 20-0 system, but slightly less granular. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the point of it really, because if you, because you got two extremes, right? You got simplistic win, draw, loss. You've got super granular, which is just use kill points. Well, to sort of strip out the effect of these extreme results, let's have a 20-0 system, because if somebody wins by 2,100 or 3,000 victory points, doesn't matter, they're still only getting 20, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of cuts off those real extreme results. But the Games Workshop system is just a less granular version of the 20-0 system.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't see why that would work any better, and I don't really understand why they've introduced it.
It's
considering they seem to have a good link with Best Coast pairings, so
yeah.
Because you can now use your My Warhammer to log in, so I don't know what's going on there, but I don't know whether GW have like secretly bought it a few years ago and are sort of using it for data and purposes or whatever.
Which is possible. Like they could literally have the API for it, and they might have the link in there. I did notice that appear one day, and I thought, that's a little bit weird, a little bit suspect, but okay, fine. If that's how it works, that's how it works.
Yeah, it's sad, really, that almost the entire Games Workshop community are really suspicious of the actual company.
Yeah,
like we really like the product, but we really don't like the company and the way it behaves. It's just it's weird, isn't it? I've never really understood that.
But then you're going to get people, because it's a hobby that people really are passionate about. They're going to have strong opinions about things, the way that things are done. They're always never going, they're never going to be done the way that you want them to be done. They're never going to be perfect, and people are quite,
they're never going to be perfect. But the problem is, and everybody who's been around it for a few years knows this. They don't care about existing gamers. They want they want recruitment. Is their number one KPI for store managers, whatever. It's all recruitment. It's all about new players. So existing players, they literally don't care. They feel they've had your money and they're not going to get any more. That's their kind of logic. So they go heavy on recruitment, which is why they like stuff like Space Marines, because kids love Space Marines. And it's like, as you get older, you get a bit more mature and you start to like a bit more interesting, like less black and white concepts, which is why, stuff like Black Templars and, Blood Angels and all the rest fly off the shelves, because it's a very simplistic, these are good guys, they kill bad guys, which is great for younger people. But then as you get a bit more mature, you like a few shades of grey, because you've made a few mistakes yourself and you realize that life ain't that simple.
So what I get from that is basically 40k is for children, and if you like complex,
no.
Okay, I mean, it's your words, not mine. But all hate mail directed to Malign Music, please. And well, I'm sure some people agree with that. But anyway, we digress. 20 nil system, yes. Yeah, I think Games Workshop, just their 6-0 system seems to be, somebody went, oh, we like the 20 nil system, but we can't just copy and paste that. So just create your own and go, all right, okay, well, we have this major victory table, we have this minor loss thing. Why not just assign a points value to that, 6-0 and stuff like that. And actually the event at the weekend with the Cathy guys was a 6-0 system.
Right, okay.
It was just a little bit odd seeing, scores when you're used to seeing 20 nil come up. It comes up with like 6 or 5 or 0. It was a little bit odd to sort of mentally try and get an idea of how big the wins were. But I guess, and then in a way, that's
three's a draw under that system, isn't it?
Yes, and then, I believe three's a draw. Yeah, three's a draw, and then 4, 5, 6 is a win of various sizes. Yeah, that's it. And what I do like about the 20 nil system is actually the level of granularity you can get just based off battle points alone. Like, it's, in a way, it's quite simple to work out who the winner is, because it's the person with the most battle points. And it's
sort of,
it's not often that you have to go down to tiebreakers on those ones, because the amount of people on this exactly the same score as you is going to be usually quite low. Like I think you in let's say a 70-player event, I think you'd be lucky to have maybe 2 instances of people who are on the same score and have to get broken down by secondary. So especially at the top, like it is quite rare. And the other thing that I do like about it is you always have a chance. Always feels like you have a chance of doing well, or submarining is what people call it. I'm an expert in submarining. I'm very good at doing really badly in my first round and then just bouncing up through the pairings up into
I do it on purpose.
Yeah, well,
like my first game, if I'm winning, I'll pull back and just try and win by a decent margin, but not a massive one.
Yeah,
because I just don't want to play that like spawny, bloke with a horrible list game too. Like, I don't end up on the top tables very often. I end up sort of top half. That's normally where I am. And like over the years, I've found that's the best place to be, because everybody's doing quite well. Everybody's quite happy. Everybody's quite jolly. Everybody at that stage knows they're probably not going to win it. So they're there for fun, but they're there to be competitive, right? And they're not. Whereas, like, I know people say the fun games are on the bottom tables, but sometimes when you're down there, like I remember when I started Age of Sigmar, I went for Slaves to Darkness as my faction, and they were just like absolutely honkingly awful.
Yeah,
like bottom of the meta, terrible. I thought, no, I'll prove them wrong, and then didn't.
There's a reason they were there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I spent several years on the bottom tables, and you often came across people who were just like really like depressed and frustrated that they'd got this idea, or they painted this really cool army, and they were just getting kicked around, and they weren't having fun. You could tell, and it's not their fault. It's horrible to lose over and over and over and over and again. Like I really don't like losing, but like I'm quite competitive, so yeah. But I mean, yeah. So I'd submarine on purpose if I can control it. Obviously, I don't profess to be that good that I can all the time. But
yeah, that does require an awful lot of control, and sometimes it can be to your detriment, because you think, oh, I'll just win this by a little bit in my first game, and then you play your second game and you do quite well, and then suddenly in the third round you face somebody who you manage to lose, and then suddenly you're sort of really out of the running of things. And
it can backfire,
And also that's really only a tactic that works for 2-day events, because on a 1-day event you want to score as many points as you can and under a 20 nil system, because otherwise, in fact, again, another event that I went to recently, I came second because I won my first game under the 20-0 system. It would have been 19-1. And then I won the next two games 20-0, but I was literally 1 point behind the winner who won all three of his games 20-0, and hats off to him. And
That's
it's
impressive. Yep.
well, the state of competition in Scotland. It's very tight. We have a decent number of good players, but yeah, that's what I find at 1 day events. The 20-0 system, you sort of have to gung ho and go for as
Mm,
much as you can. And I feel like in a 2 day event, you can do the submarine a little bit better. You can
mm,
try and try and maybe not win massively in your first game, or even if you
mm.
lose slightly or draw, you can then make up those points going forward.
It's also you kind of want your last game to be the hardest because then
Sure.
it feels like a game, right? You have a boss fight at the end.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You don't want your best you don't want your biggest boss fight like in Act Two, and then the other three acts of it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It doesn't feel right. So
yeah.
I don't know,
And
but
and
yeah,
and sometimes that can happen. This is the odd thing about the 20-0 system is you can have people jump in the top sort of 3 or 5 places, who came out of like nowhere in a
mm,
way, because they were on table 7 or 8, or even lower down, and they suddenly managed to get a big win, and then everybody in the top tables, because it's so close, have got minor wins, or not
mm,
big results. And I mean, this this is more in the Warhammer days. I have seen people jump to like first place from like table 5 because everybody
mm,
above them got minor wins. And in a way that's exciting because it means that you're in with a chance. Like, you always feel like you played to the last game.
mm.
But it also can suck if you are on top table and you've earned your place in the top table, and suddenly you get a draw, or a small win or a small loss, but both of you are jumped by someone else. Um,
Mm,
that's one thing that I feel is a, a bit of a detriment, to that if you're playing on table 1 in round 5,
mm.
if you lose, and even if you lose by a tiny amount, you can suddenly be out of the podium completely, which
Mm.
absolutely sucks. And it's something that, again, I
It's because it's kind that game is kind of it feels like it should be like the final
yeah,
almost
yeah,
because you've got like you've got the two best players over the last 4 rounds. The Swiss pairing will have probably kept them apart, hopefully.
yeah,
So then you get to the final game, and then it should be basically the best two players in the room.
yeah,
And funnily enough, they probably end up with a quite tight game because of
yeah,
the best two players in the room. And then somebody who's, as you said, maybe like fourth or fifth is playing up against somebody who's like ninth or 10th because of how the Swiss system works. And then they
yeah.
absolutely curb stomp them and end up leapfrogging and winning the tournament. And it just, for those two people on the top table, it must feel, I've never been in that situation, so I don't know. But I
Well,
mean,
you're
it must feel pretty horrible.
I've been in that situation recently. As you I can tell, I play a lot of tournaments. So I it was actually the Games Workshop GT back in April.
Right.
And I round 5, I
Oh, was
was
that the one
playing
that
against
Russ Field
Russ
won?
Veal. Yes, the other
Yeah.
one that Russ Veal won again. Um,
Yeah, I'm so jealous of Russ.
he does well. He does well. It's frustrating,
He's so
but
good at tournaments, and he's really good at painting. He's like just got everything. He's
it
just and he's
he
a really nice bloke.
well,
It's like
yeah, yeah. No, he is nice. I do like Russ. Russ and I go back a long time.
he's.
We get
I've
on
never
well.
played against him. Everybody says he's not nice to play, but that's because he's really good.
I think
So
people, well, he gets Russ the Face Veal for a reason. Like, that nickname is there
yeah,
because he has his serious demeanor. But as soon as the game's over, it's all very very nice. But if you know him well enough, then you can sort of shit talk him on that, and it's quite good fun. But the experience is exactly as you said. Like, we basically went into the last round, having won all our games. And there was a discussion as to whether we just take a handshake draw and just say,
mm,
like, because in a way, if we did that, then both of us would be on the podium. Now,
yeah,
that one was a win loss draw system. It wasn't a 20-0 system, to be fair. But
yeah,
the going into the last round, there were 3 people that were undefeated.
right,
So myself, Russ, and Scott Reed were undefeated. So and because Russ and I were ranked higher, we played each other, and obviously Scott played the pair down. And Scott managed to win his game fairly quickly, actually. So that we knew that if we basically took a handshake draw, then
both off, yeah,
we would have been got a nice big shiny trophy. Everybody's happy. Um, But I never like that as a way to finish a tournament. Like I always feel like you should really play it out
Mm.
and give it a try. And I did, and in the end, I actually lost by, I think it was like 40 or 50 points. It was victory
Huh?
points. It was absolutely minute, but that pushed me out to sixth place from being on the top one. And it's, that's just the way that sometimes the tiebreakers fall out. But I do feel like it sort of sucks to have got to, like you say, the final battle, the final, and you lose maybe by a tiny amount, and suddenly you get pushed out to sort of like negligible numbers,
Yeah.
and it can be a bit of sort of a stick, but it's just the way the scoring systems work. Unfortunately,
Mm.
sometimes that's just how it pans out. I think that's the other thing, the complaint that people have with the 20-0 system is basically sometimes the winner can be somebody who hasn't won all their games, and
Mm.
you'll have somebody further down, maybe second, third, fourth, who has won all their games, but they only won by a small amount.
Mm.
Who under a win loss draw system would have probably won the event, but under a
Mm.
20-0 system they haven't, and maybe that favors some
Yeah, because you could
armies.
have like a player who's got like, I don't know, 5-12, so they end up with 60 points, right? But
Yeah,
then somebody's won three and got 20 O's on all of them, so they've therefore got 60 points. And
yeah,
then they've lost the other two. They could have even lost the other two
yeah,
and just they could, in fact, they could have lost the other two by they could have been 20-0 and 19-1. And
and
then
then
they end up
suddenly
with
they win.
61 points,
Yeah,
having curb stomped three opponents and being curb stomped twice themselves,
yeah.
and they win the tournament. Whereas somebody who's like just steadily accruing points and accruing victories ends up not winning, despite the fact they won all their games. So yeah, I think maybe that's what GW are trying to do by reducing it to 6 points, because like your difference between a draw and a win is basically 20 points,
Yeah.
or an extreme win and the draw is 20 is sorry is 10 points towards the tournament, which is a big swing, especially if the top table's drawing. Everybody in that sort of 4 to 8 position has an opportunity to leapfrog them and get
Yeah.
to the top, which is what the 20-0 system kind of incentivizes, really. But
It's not a perfect system. It's not a
no,
perfect system.
I
But
don't. Well, there is no such thing as a perfect system, right? I mean,
well, no, but
it
you can try and make it better.
you can, yeah,
There's
yeah,
always the incentive, and that leads us on to our next topic of discussion. Speaking of systems that are trying to make things better, and this is basically a topic of discussion that you brought up in one of your previous videos, which
yeah,
was um, basically around using rugby scoring in
yeah.
tournament setting. You obviously have this idea much more fleshed out than I do, so I'll let you explain what your thoughts are behind this. How does that work?
Well, I mean, I've been a fan of rugby for years. I play still, stupidly, because I'm quite old and broken. But anyway, I still like running at people and getting smacked. Um, don't know why, just weird. Um, but I mean, the rugby. So the whole point of the system is. So I'll just tell you what it is. So basically, how it works is if you get a draw, you get 2 points. It's not like football, in that football you get 1 point for a draw, 3 point for a win. They basically in football have a win, draw, loss system,
Yeah,
right?
that's what it sounds like.
Same as the vast majority of like league sports, like a lot of American sports are fundamentally a win, draw, loss system,
Yeah,
which probably explains why they like that, because that's what they're used to.
yeah,
Like Super Bowl, blah 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 blah. That permeates the culture, doesn't it?
it does.
Whereas like so the rugby points, you get 2 for a draw, you get 4 for a win, and there are a couple of bonus points on offer.
Hmm.
So you get 1 bonus point if you score 4 tries or more,
Hmm.
and which means you're doing really well.
Yeah,
And you get 1 bonus point if you lose, but by a small margin.
yeah,
So actually, if you score loads of tries and lose by a small margin, you end up with the same amount of points to the league as if you'd drawn.
mm.
So but if you draw, right, and you score a load of points, you end up with 3 points, because you get your bonus point as well.
Hmm.
The most points you can get is 5, because you get a win plus one for like the extra points.
Yeah,
So I think, to me, that incentivizes like both teams to keep in it, like on until the death. But also it means that once you reach a certain point, i.e. once you've got your 4 tries,
yeah,
if you're already ahead by some margin, then you can maybe rest a few players and maybe sort of back off a little bit and not attack with so much intensity and just like control the game a bit
Ease
more.
off the accelerator, basically.
Yeah, not knacker yourself out. Trying now, obviously, there are downsides in that your opposition can like really ramp up and get a load of points back and overtake you, which does happen. But like, it just allows it allows for a bit more, I guess, kind of a bit more of a tactical game in terms of like the game management piece, in terms of like how you're managing the tempo and the fitness and all the rest. So I mean, I just thought, well, how could we apply that to like Warhammer? Because like it works quite well as a system. Like you very rarely do you end up with teams drawing on points.
Yeah.
And then if they are, you just take try bonus as like a tiebreaker, which is like Warhammer, it's like a victory point differential. That's the ultimate level of granularity. Like if two teams have got the same number of like tournament points and the same victory point differential, like I'd say they probably should be ranked equally. Like just in general.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, if you're that equal, then you're that equal, right? So in terms of how it might apply to Warhammer, again, I'd say I like the 300 point draw margin. Like I said, I like more draws. But then I think if you incentivize people to like perform whilst drawing at so for instance, if you shut up, Dan, go back to the beginning. So how do you translate the 4 try thing? So 4 tries in rugby basically means you've got about 26 points in the game. You're said if you get 50 points on an opposition, you've dominated them, right?
Okay.
That's how it works in rugby. 50 point is a domination.
Yeah.
So halfway to domination in Warhammer is about 1,000 points.
That sounds about right.
You could give a bonus point if somebody scores over 1,000 points, whether they win, draw, lose. They get a bonus point for getting over that 1,000 point hurdle.
Yeah. Because to do that, you have to commit and you have to have a fight. You can't just score it through objectives and shooting a little bit of this and that. Like you need to commit.
Possibly, it's like how, but you have to throw yourself into it and give it a really good go and keep fighting. And actually, even if you are losing, it is worth playing right to the end to just try and pick yourself over that 1,000 points, because then you get a point for the tournament. And then the losing situation would I'd suggest probably. If the victory point differential is 700 points or less.
Okay.
So 0 to 300 draw, 301 to 700, you still get your losing bonus point as it were. So, you could end up with like 1,100 victory points. Your opponent has 1,600 victory points.
Yeah.
They get their 5 points because they've got over 1,000 and they've won. But you get 2 points because you've got over 1,000 and it was a narrow loss. So effectively, you fought really hard to get the same number of like table points, as it were. As if you'd drawn. So it's worth fighting to kind of get those points back, as it were. And similarly, if you're drawing, you want to get over 1,000. Even if the game is dead set, it's going to be a draw. I just need to get a few. I just need to snipe that gyrocopter off. And then I'm on 1,100 victory. You know what I mean? And then. So I think that works because it's a relatively simple system. It's relatively easy to understand. I mean, if a meathead prop can understand it,
then you underestimate the intelligence of some of our viewers. But essentially, what you're saying is basically this system incentivizes winning the game as any system should.
Obviously,
winning it by quite some margin. But it also incentivizes the person who's losing to keep fighting and to try and get some bonus points through scoring enough victory points, through narrowing the gap and the difference. So even if you feel like you've come up against a better player or a better army, or you're having crap luck or whatever, you don't just give up and go, right, let's just shake on it and go and have some beers. No, you keep fighting until the end, because a best case loss scenario for you could be your opponent getting 5 tournament points and you getting 4 tournament points, which doesn't feel like. Am I right? Am I maths?
Are you getting 2? Yeah. Because there's 2 bonus points.
2 bonus. Okay.
So if you lose, you can get a losing bonus point and like a kind of 1,000 victory point bonus point. So your best result is 2.
Okay.
Your best result if you get a draw is 3, because you get 2 for a draw and then 1 for like scoring over 1,000.
Yep.
Obviously, you can't get the losing bonus point if you draw because you've drawn.
Of course.
So your maximum score if you lose is 2. Your maximum score if you draw is 3, and the maximum score if you win is 5. So there's a little bit of, but then obviously you've got you can. There are a variety of results within that. If you just win, you get 4. So you can get anything between 0 and 5 based on, but rather than it just being about like the victory point differential, there's a bit more to fight for, really. It's like, because one of my observations, like when especially when somebody's like losing, they often, like in their head, pick like a secondary objective, just for like a
I have to kill the general, I have to kill that dragon. All right, yeah.
But then actually this system rewards that, because you're probably going to pick yourself over 1,000.
That system does reward you to just keep fighting, doesn't it? You don't just sort of give up, and it makes for, in a way that and this is based off seeing what rugby events end up being like. So say for example the Six Nations event. When you see the final standings of those games, at the very end, it's very close. Like one tournament.
Oh, there's always
difference.
like 1 or 2 points in it. Like, very rarely is it like an absolute walkover.
Yeah, exactly. And there's other things you can throw in there. Like for example, if you win all your games, you can maybe get another victory, another tournament point there or something. There's things you can play around with. It's not a fixed format, but it is something that could improve the way that final standings are done in a tournament scenario, and also incentivize you to keep fighting even if you've sort of lost the game, if you think it's too far to catch up.
And also kind of like to incentivize those players who are like massively ahead to just be a bit nice.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to, absolutely smash your opponent every time with this system. Once you've got your 1,000 points, you might be 1,000 points clear of them as well. Like, you're definitely going to win.
Yeah.
Like, just back off a bit and just like sit on objectives and just let them try and have a game and let them try and, attack you. And, because like Warhammer, and I love Total War because it does exactly the same thing, but it's about trading really, isn't it? It's like, am I trading? So every conflict you go into, every fight you go into, the question is, am I trading well in this conflict? Have I got the upper hand? Am I killing more? Am I getting more points? Is this worth doing? Or should I back off and throw something else in? So that's what Warhammer's all about, and winning games of Warhammer's all about. So if you know that you're trading really well, you're winning really well, you're winning ahead, then actually you can just pull out a little bit and just let the opponent have a go at seeing if they can trade well with you.
And what I quite like to do, but I feel is difficult to do under some of the current scoring system, is actually almost offer your opponent a bit of coaching, just to say, like, don't give up hope.
Yeah, but don't you find when you do that, people are like, look at you like really suspiciously, like, are you having me on, or are you just nice?
I guess maybe,
what it is.
I don't know. Maybe I have a trusting demeanor, and people don't think I'm up to something completely suspicious. But like, I do tend to feel like I, as a person who has a lot of like gaming experience and tournament experience, if you're the person who's essentially the beatdown, like who is in control of the game, you can spot opportunities that your opponent might not see, especially if they're a less experienced player. You'll be able to say, like, they'll be like, oh, I've completely lost. And you go, well, actually, like, if you charge that there, you have a chance of scoring some points here. And worst case scenario, you're losing anyway. So, like, just all Hail Mary, like, give it a try. And I feel like under, a 20-0 system or an incentive where you're trying to score as many victory points as possible without giving up that many, you'd be offering that advice up as a detriment to your own performance, which as a competitive player is difficult to sort of justify. But I guess
what you shouldn't do if you're a competitive player, you should be there to win the tournament, because
exactly
that's what it's about.
That's what it's about. But under the system that you propose, the rugby scoring system, once you have got your margin of victory, you can help your opponent. You can say, look, How well?
Not too much. Not
Not
too
too
much.
much, but enough, enough so that they feel like they're still in the game. And who knows? Maybe that'll earn you a sports vote at the end of the day.
Or just if they're a new Cathay player, remind them that they get to re-roll that particular panic test and not the
Yes,
other
I
one.
would definitely remind all Cathay players to all their good
Oh,
rules.
you were fled through by your troops, so you get to re-roll that. Have you forgotten?
Everything, all the good rules. Yeah, yeah. Not that we're bitter or anything, but I
No.
think I think Cathay is definitely something that'll need to be looked at another time. But yeah, I think that runs out quite nicely. That's sort of how that's the most popular game. Do you know of any other scoring systems? Have I missed anything? Like you've seen a lot more tournaments than I have in terms of results. Is there anything else? Any
What
crazy
that are
stuff?
used in not? I don't think so. I mean, essentially, that's kind of that's the gamut, isn't it? From one end, you've got like a real simplistic win draw loss. At the other end, you've got victory points.
Yeah.
In terms of granularity, you probably got 20-0 system, which is just behind victory points.
Yeah.
And then you got Games Workshop's system, which is kind of in the middle. And then this kind of rugby system would be a bit closer to win draw loss, but still with like an element of granularity. So
Yeah.
I think but it just depends what you're trying to incentivize your players to do. If you want to incentivize your players just to go out there and absolutely give each other a kicking,
Yeah.
then go 20-0. If you want to keep it simple, but then again, the win draw loss system is kind of a bit too simple in that people still want to give everybody else a kicking because,
Yeah.
I don't know, but.
So the win loss draw system is for simple children who play 40k and 20.
I know.
Okay.
No, it's for people who want the mental load to be elsewhere.
Okay.
So that they don't want
nice
to
way of
exert
saying
too
it.
much mental load on the tournament scoring system.
Yeah.
They want to focus on making sure they've got enough scenery and everybody's having a fun time,
Yeah.
rather than working out results.
Yeah.
I would,
and
say.
that's fair. I mean, your TO is your tournament organizers who run these at the end of the day are the ones who decide what scoring system to use and how and a lot depends on how much they want to how simple they want their life to be essentially. And
well, and also
hats off to them.
I mean, I've never run a tournament, but I talk to a lot of TAs, and they always seem to be, even though they pretend not to be, massively stressed the whole weekend about everything.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, it does feel. I mean, I've only run one event in Old World, and I've helped with a few others, but it does feel like it's the pressure's on you because if anything goes wrong, and it often does, there's always something that goes wrong. It's down to you to fix it. Otherwise, everybody it seems like they'll blame you. But at the end of the day, you're all there to have fun, and people understand that, and people are very understanding if things go wrong. Like we're just here to throw some dice and play some toy soldiers. So, there isn't an expectation that you're running a professional get out professional business or anything like that. So, for most part, people will be very understanding. And that in a way is maybe sort of leads us on to our next discussion. When are we running a tournament with this new cool system you've designed?
Well, whatever. I mean, one thing I've been thinking about, well, obviously, if I'm playing rugby that weekend, probably not that weekend.
Probably not that weekend.
I'd rather get punched instead for some reason.
That can be arranged.
I'll do both. Cool. As long as there's some scrums, I'll be all right.
That can totally be arranged.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've been thinking about for a while, and I've offered to a couple of people, is like, if you want to take the load off, I'm quite happy to turn up and act as referee, and do rules disputes. I think that would be quite cool, especially if I get like a body cam or something like that, because like
VAR.
VAR. Yeah, almost. Yeah, but almost like like a police body cam or whatever.
Yeah.
And then because I think a lot of people like it just in order really to show those people who are like on the fence about whether they should go to tournaments or not, just to show them like what conduct is actually like.
Yeah.
So I think the vast majority of people would be really surprised at how nice people are, even when they're falling out.
Yeah.
Like how friendly they are when they're falling out over a rules dispute. And then I've seen that loads.
And then they get home and they get on the forums and then on the Discord and start bitching about each other. No, I do agree. That was a bad decision. But then who doesn't do that in a real sports game?
Well,
exactly. They say, there's a judge's
referees
decision.
get half decisions wrong.
Yes, of course.
Religiously. So, like, whatever.
Exactly.
But you've got to have one just to these are the rules. No
Yeah.
disputes.
And I think that's fair as well. Um, there is a way to do disputes correctly.
Yeah,
And I think not everybody has that skill, but it's definitely something that people need to know. But we will get you up to an event of ours at some point. That I can promise. We can definitely give
cool.
that a try. I think that'd be really good fun. Okay, Grant, is there
Yes, you're
anything?
you're Edinburgh, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm Edinburgh based, but basically anywhere in the Central Belt is anywhere within a 2 hour driving distance is fairly safe, which includes like Newcastle and then goes as far as like Aberdeen. That's sort of my
Okay.
patch. Is there anything you want to shout out before we close off?
You should have asked me that before, and I'd
I should
actually
have.
thought of something like magnanimous and like oh Dan, isn't he such a great guy? No, no, no. Well, apart from old world rankings, I really like Collingwood. I
Yeah,
like the work he's doing. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, I think everybody knows about all the other resources probably, but I quite to be honest, like in terms of like tech, and I mean, other channels I follow, I quite like Rob Symes. I watch a few of his videos every now and again.
yeah,
That's Square based, isn't it? I
yeah.
quite
They
like
really
Rob.
need our shout out actually because they're a really small channel that needs
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
they
yeah,
need
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
additional
They've got
support.
hardly any subscribers. They
Barely
definitely need
anyone
more.
knows about them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
barely
yeah,
anyone knows about them.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I do really like Rob. I've been to loads of his tournaments over the years, and if you're ever in the Nottingham area, definitely go to one of his tournaments because the venue's weird but really nice, and there's normally a good crowd there. So yeah, I guess that's off the top of my head. You really put me on the
I know. I
spot,
like to
and
do that. It
yeah,
just keeps
thanks.
it fresh. No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
Well, and that's it. I mean, for the rest of our, I guess, listeners, if you thought that this content was worth a watch, yeah, give us a big like and a follow. Now, I'm going to put Dan's channel
and a comment,
in
make
a
a
comment.
comment.
You need
Yeah,
to keep up with the algorithm because it all encourages more people to see it and view it. I'll
yeah.
put Dan's channel in the description as well. Please give it a like.
Oh, thank you.
He is also very close to breaking through that 1,000 subscribers, which is key to making
Oh,
millions on YouTube. I am
I've been for
told.
about a year now. It's like I
Well,
don't think it's gonna
hopefully we
happen.
can give a little push and get you over the edge. But Dan, thank you
To
very
be honest,
much for.
I never really expected anybody. I just started the channel because like I was just just sort of sat there just thinking I'm going mad with all of these ideas. So I just need to just get them out.
Yeah,
And
and I think it's been popular. I mean, I've been watching it. I've been thoroughly enjoying them, and I'm sure others have as well.
yeah, I still find it weird. I don't really like me, so I don't really understand why other people do.
Well, the internet is full of wonderful weirdos who all love
Yeah, I know.
of
Yeah,
the
hi.
same kink. So, and if you like that sort of kink, well, there you go. You've definitely
Yeah.
got a couple of people you can join there. But no, Dan, thank you very much for making it
All
on. I
right.
do appreciate
Well,
it.
thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thanks everyone for watching, and hopefully we'll see you at the next show. All the best.
Toodaloo.
Bye bye.